Hello, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today's webinar is 3 Ways to Become a Stronger Nonprofit Leader with Joel Kessel. My name is Kara Godleski, and I am the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Nonprofit Hub and Do More Good. Thank y'all so much for joining us today. We're just going to wait a few minutes for everybody to log on, get ready. So in the meantime, please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're from. I am here in Huntsville, Alabama, and it is about 60 degrees here and rainy. We're also going to do a little icebreaker question. What is your favorite show to binge watch? You can also drop that in the chat. I think one of my favorite shows to binge watch probably is The Office. That's one of my favorites. Oh, let's see what we got. We got some people from, Yellowstone. That's a really good show. That was one of my other favorite shows to binge watch. Inventing Anna. Everybody, seems to be on that one right now. I see somebody from Tennessee. You're my neighbor in Alabama.
I see someone from Laura's from Canton, Ohio. That's up in my neck of the woods. Laura, I went to Perry High School over in Massillon. So I'm sure she's familiar with that.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. The Witcher, yes. Oh, somebody from Canada. Hey, Valerie.
Awesome.
Jackson, Mississippi. Hello, another Southerner. Oh, Barbara, you went golfing up here in Huntsville. I wonder what golf location were you in? The Ledges? Very cool.
All right.
And if you are joining us late, just to let you know you are in the right place if you did come to learn about ways you can become a stronger nonprofit leader. Also, just before we jump into today's content, here are just a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is going to be recorded. So you'll hear from us later today, and you'll get a video of today's recording along with the resources that Joel might mention today. And you are encouraged to chat with us. We will be monitoring the chats, and we will be making sure that your questions are answered. So if you do answer the questions in the polls and you engage with us, you will be entered into a giveaway. We will be giving away a Do More Good journal and pen and sticker. So if you engage and answer all the questions, you'll be entered. And questions are welcome. We'll be having a live Q&A at the end of the webinar, and our team will be keeping track at all of them. So we'll do our very best to answer all of your questions. Also, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our platform partner, FireSpring. FireSpring works every day to create tools and resources that make fundraising easier and more effective. From mission-driven websites to engaging marketing programs at work, they have tools you need to highlight your nonprofit and make you shine as a leader.
Hey, Kara, it's
Hi.
Katie. I'm just calling in. So Mitch was able to join us from Pond. Mitch, do you want to talk a little bit about our partnership? Can you hear me, Mitch? Okay, why don't we have Mitch come back on at the end? Let's let Joel take it away.
Yeah, sure thing. So I would like to just introduce Joel. He is a strategic advisor who helps nonprofits increase their impact through strategic planning and advising. For more than 25 years, he has been advising, training, and helping organizations just grow, and as well as for-profit leaders as well. He just wants people to be able to think more strategically, communicate more effectively, so they can impact the people they lead and lead them to become a stronger leader.
Awesome. Thanks, Kara. Hey, while you guys are getting my slide deck up, there we go. Hello, everyone. Just if you haven't yet, click on the poll in the upper right-hand corner here next to the chat. If you want to take that poll, just curious where everyone is in terms of their position within their nonprofit organization. So excellent. A lot of leaders here. Great. Want to be in a leadership role Okay, awesome. All right, that gives me a good idea here. So, hey, gang, we call this 3 ways to become a stronger nonprofit leader. I'm going to give you more than 3. I hope that's okay. But I want to set the stage here and just kind of help set expectations. I'm going to throw a lot at you. We're going to be jamming through a lot of content here. Take your notes. I'm going to be using chat a lot. And keep this in mind. This is coming through my lens. I've been working with nonprofits for more than 25 years. And this is a lot of this is from my perspective. I'm going to share a little bit about my backstory. I'm going to share some stories about some other clients that I coach and work with in peer groups and strategic planning. So I just want to let you know that it's coming through my lens. And I want to make sure that, I'm giving you the value that you need, because I know your time is valuable today. But please ask questions in the chat. I know Kaylee and Kara are going to be watching those questions so we can get to as many at the end as possible. So read this quote. Being CEO is not a reward, it's a responsibility. When I saw that, it reminded me of a client I've been working with here in Ohio, an executive director. One day she came on a peer group meeting and just painted this very bleak picture of what was going on with their organization. Very little funds, little plan to raise more funds, disengaged board, just painted this really bleak picture. And one of the members then asked her this question: are you the right person for the job? And followed that up with, do you want to be the person to turn things around for this job? And I loved her response, because she thought about it and said, you know what? I have a responsibility to my community. And it was just, wow. That was the right answer. And she's turning things around. She's in the middle of it still, but she really, and she wasn't familiar with this quote. Being CEO is not a reward, it's a responsibility. So I hope some of you take that to heart here today. So I have some questions for you to think about. Do you believe you're the right person to lead your organization? Do you want to be the person leading your organization? What does your organization require of you as its executive director or CEO today and moving forward? And then lastly, this question: 2 years from now, are you growing in front of the organization and the team? What do I mean by that, right? As a leader or an aspiring leader, where do we need to be in order to continue to progress and make it the impact that we want to make within the communities that we're working in? So are we staying ahead of that? And are we that leader that the organization needs to be? Are we the leader that the people we're impacting need us to be? So some questions for you to ponder. So real quickly, that's me. Went to Ohio State, background in journalism, PR, communications. That's what I did for many years. I went to Chicago the first 14 years of my career. That's when I started working with nonprofit organizations more than 25 years ago. Worked with Chicago Youth Centers, Ronald McDonald House Charities. Worked internally for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. Relocated back here to Ohio. Picked up the National Runaway Safe Line as a client for about 15 years. So a lot of nonprofit experience, just a handful of other organizations I've had the good fortune of working with, either through coaching, peer group facilitation, strategic planning, just in the last 12 to 18 months. So I love what I do, just feel blessed every day to be able to work with those organizations that are doing meaningful work in a meaningful way. So goals for today. What are we going to cover? What's my goal? What do I envision for all of you? It's for you to identify where you want and need to develop as a leader, and also for you to take action on that development. Now, I know there's a lot of leaders here. There's probably some coordinators, some director level type folks. All of these principles and all of these points that I'm going to make today, some are going to resonate more with some. Others are going to resonate with some of you others. My goal also is for you to take what makes sense for you. If you're aspiring to be a leader, some of these principles are going to make a lot of sense. And I just want you to take that into consideration, because really all of us are leaders. If you're a coordinator, you're leading projects, right? You're the leader of a project and people are relying on you to be that leader. So we're all leaders in some capacity. Let's do a quick exercise here. Rate your leadership level. So on a scale from 1 to 10, I want you to go ahead and just write down, your note wherever you feel you land. 1 is you need some work, and 10 is you're crushing it. So I'm just curious, and if you're comfortable, go ahead and put it in the chat what your number is. But also, I'm curious if you're comfortable sharing why that number. Okay, we're getting some numbers in here. 9, 6, 4. I'm curious why do you feel that number is the number? All right, Christine, I'm new to the role. I'm a 4. Lawrence, okay, could learn a lot. All right, thanks for being honest, guys. Really appreciate it. And along that honesty comment, I'm wondering, how honest are you guys being? Some of us are our own worst critic. I'm just curious, how honest are we being when we put our number down here? All right, here's a question. What can you do to make it 1 point better in the next 90 days? So I'm curious, what comes to mind? Go ahead and put that in the chat. What do you think you can do to make it 1 point better in the next 90 days? Okay. Consistency. Barbara, that's awesome. That's a really good one. Sleep. Yeah, Katie, we could use some sleep. Listening. Really good, Lucy. Thank you. Organize. Great stuff. Great stuff, guys. Awesome. All right, some challenges. What are you guys frustrated with? Put that in the chat. What's frustrating you guys? And I'm going to ask this 2 ways. As a leader, if you're in a leadership role, what are the challenges, some of the challenges that you're facing? If you're a coordinator or a director level, what are some of the frustrations that you have of your boss? If you're okay sharing that. Inactive board members, staff workload, knowledge, follow through. Okay, good stuff, you guys. Resources, lack of knowledge, too many cooks. Okay, gosh, you guys are sharing a lot of good stuff. Okay, excellent. Yeah, let's see, we have staff turnover, good stuff. So this is just a handful of some of the things that I deal with when I'm coaching, working with peer group members and doing some, Adrian, uncomfortable with confrontation, right? It's that conflict. We're going to talk a little bit about that here today. But here's some on my screen here. Self-confidence, fundraising. It's the way we've always done it. Don't you love that excuse, right? Overwhelmed. Someone mentioned resources. Yeah, look, we're all dealing with a lot of challenges. I was curious. I Googled it. Challenges of a nonprofit leader. Look at how many results came back. Over 80 million. Are you kidding me? I was curious on Amazon, how many books are out there on leadership? More than 60,000. So you guys are not alone, right? There's a lot of things that you're dealing with, a lot of similarities, but they're all unique to your organization and the circumstances that you find yourselves in. So check this out. How many are here? How many have been here? This was me about 12 to 14 years ago. I was stuck. I had little focus. I lacked direction. I lacked confidence. The person you see here today was not the person 12 years ago. I was lost. And the world happened to me. I was just sort of drifting along. And so here's what I did. I hired a coach, started working with the coach, got in a peer group. And I remember one of the things I said early on, I said, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing now, but I know there's something else out there for me. And my coach said, well, what do you want? Well, what is that? I had that mindset of it's just going to fall in my lap or it's just going to happen. And what I had to come to the realization of is I have to make it happen. I have to be the change. So started working with that coach. I started taking imperfect action, right? That was a concept that scared the heck out of me when my coach said that. Take imperfect action. What do we mean by that, right? We can't plan ourselves out of a corner. We have to act our way out of a corner. And by taking that action, we're going to learn a lot. Some of the things I learned, I took all the assessments, right? Started listening to all the podcasts, going to more conferences. Here's what I learned a little bit about myself. I'm a coach. I'm a speaker. I'm an educator, inspirer. I'm an altruist, right? I care about the well-being of others. One of the things that I learned in one of the assessments I took, it was the pro development assessment, was stop executing. I didn't like execution type work, right? So that was an aha moment, and it gave me permission to stop doing the work that I didn't like to do and start focusing on the things that I was strong at. So what's the point in all this, right? Point one, strong leaders have a high level of self-awareness. Now, I know I might be being presumptuous that I'm a strong leader, but my point here is I'm a much stronger leader today than I was 12 to 14 years ago, because I took some of those imperfect actions to try to grow and make things better. Point two, strong leaders surround themselves with good people. What do I mean by good people? My peer group members are good people. I'm still in a peer group today. I'm surrounded by really good people who are truth tellers. They're telling me the truth. They tell me what I need to hear, not necessarily what I want to hear, but actually what I need to hear. As difficult as that is at times, it's the stuff that some of us actually need to hear from time to time to kick us in the shorts and start taking action on how do we improve? How do we become a stronger leader? How do I handle that situation better the next time around, because I miserably failed the last time? So surrounding yourself with really good people. So how do we do that? Ask yourself some questions here. One, be intentional, right? Two, get in a peer group, right? I'm still in one ago, and it's really been helpful to gain some of those perspectives and insights from other people who may be going through similar situations, to have those truth tellers who really are telling me what I need to hear, taking the right assessments. There's a post, and Kara and Kaylee remind me afterwards. I can provide you guys a link, but there's a great post about taking the right assessment for different levels of staff in the organization. So one of the things it talks about is Strength Finders is really good for an entry level or a newer staff member. The Myers-Briggs is perfect for someone who's been there for about 5 or 7 years. And then you can take a much, like a 360 if you're at the executive director level or CEO level. So there's different assessments for different levels of the organization. So really think about your assessments, because I'm sure a lot of you are taking assessments, offering assessments, but are they the right ones for the people within the organization? Remove that negativity. Yeah, Social Dilemma. If you guys haven't seen that movie on Netflix, it's all about what's going on with in the social media world. It'll scare you. Scared me. I've got a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I immediately turned off all notifications after watching that movie, and it just started to. It was amazing the change that it made in me, where I didn't have like this weird anxious feeling, every time I'm looking at my phone. So that's just one example of removing some of the negativity. I'm very careful about watching morning news, believe it or not. There's so much negativity on the morning news, it puts me in a bad mood, right? So who are those? What are those negative things that you can remove? Who are the negative people in your life that you can remove? And then answer some of these questions. What do you want? I had a meeting last week with a gentleman who's in transition, and we had about a half-hour conversation, and I kid you not, I asked him about 5 times in 30 minutes, what do you want? He kept starting to answer the question and fall back on trying to prove what he's done in the past, as if that's going to drive his direction or tell me what to tell him on what I think he should do. I kept asking him, what do you want? Again, be intentional. We have control to determine what that outcome is. How do you want to lead? Perfectly fair question. How do you want to lead? In the context of your work, what do you want your life to look like in 5 years? Do you want to still be working 60 to 70 hours a week? I hope not. What can you do to change it so that you're working 40 to 50 hours a week within the next 12 months? So in the context of your work, what do you want your life to look like in 5 years? Because if you're working 60 to 70 hours a week, how's that impacting your family? How's that impacting life outside of work? So what does that look like in 5 years? What are your strengths? How do you leverage those strengths? How do you handle some of the weaknesses that you have, right? And what do you dream about? What do you dream about? Kind of goes back to, what do you want, right? Give yourself permission to take some time and journal, or just jot down, or go for a walk. What does life look like for you? And how do you answer some of these questions? All right, how many know this guy? Brad Pitt, right? So tell me the movie. If anybody knows the movie, I've got a book I'm going to send you. Where is it? I'm going to send you a Fundraising Freedom book by Mary Valoni. Moneyball. Who was the first one? Kara, if you can find out. See, let me scroll up here. Barbara. So Barbara, this book is coming your way. We're going to have to follow up with you and get your address and everything. But yeah, Brad Pitt and Moneyball. If you Google science versus scouts, you're going to see about a 4-minute video, a scene from the movie where Brad Pitt is talking to his team of scouts. But let me set the stage here a little bit. So back in 2002, this movie is about the 2002 Oakland A's in Major League Baseball. And mid-level team, didn't have a whole lot of money to bring in these top name players. They're in a situation, they've got to turn things around. And Billy Bean, here being played by Brad Pitt, is the general manager. And he brings in a PhD in economics to start doing some data, right? Start doing some statistics and having that play into his decision making. And there's a scene in the movie where they're having a meeting with all the scouts, and he starts to throw out names. Jeremy Giambi, and the whole room just kind of groans and like, he's out of shape. His off-field, problems are going to get in the way. And he points to the PhD guy and says, "Why do we want him?" And he says, he gets on base. He gets on base. Okay, next player, David Justice. Again, they're all moaning and groaning. He's a has-been. He can barely walk. He's useless. Why do we want him? Because he gets on base. He throws up another no-name person that they haven't even heard of. Again, they're like, why do we want him? He gets on base. What's his point? What happens when we get on base? We score runs. What happens when we score runs? We win games. So changing that mindset of the scouts and approaching something differently. The very next scene, here's Grady, one of the scouts. And basically Grady is saying, "Hey, Billy, what are you doing? This is the way we've always done it." How many of you have heard that excuse? This is the way we've always done it. And he says, you can't have a computer choose a team. And Billy Bean responds with, adapt or die. Boom, adapt or die. I'm wondering how many of us are adapting. We've been forced to adapt over the last 2 years, but how else do we need to adapt moving forward, right? Now, I want to be careful about this whole winning and winning games. I want to take this a step further. Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game, he's the guy behind Start With Why, but he came out with this book a few years ago, The Infinite Game. Let me share with you some of the stuff in the book. How do we win a game that has no end? Finite games like football or chess have known players, fixed rules, and a clear endpoint. The winners and losers are easily identified. Goes on to say that infinite games with no finish line, like business, have players who come and go. How many of you have turnover at your organization? Players are coming and going. Some of you are new executive directors and CEOs of your organization. Maybe your organization has been around for 20 years. Players are coming and going. His point here is there are no winners or losers, only ahead and behind. And the question is, how do we succeed? How do we succeed and progress in the game that we're in? So that's a question for you. How do we play to succeed in the game that we're currently in? Now, there's another book to further play this out. Atomic Habits by James Clear. It came out in 2018. He's very careful about that whole winning and losing concept. And he has a problem with goals, right? He has a problem with setting goals and just the word goals. He says achieving a goal is only a momentary change. What does he mean by that? We achieve that goal and then it's on to the next thing, right? Goals restrict your happiness, right? We may achieve that goal. We have a moment of happiness. We pat ourselves on the back. Great job, team, right? Now we're on to that next thing. We're back on that hamster wheel. Why don't we focus on the process and enjoy that process? Because the goals are at odds with long-term progress. We meet that goal, and sometimes because we have that goal, it takes our focus away from more important things. It restricts our happiness, right? A moment in time. James Clear goes on to talk about if we focus on the process, that's where the happiness lies. So what's the point we're trying to make here? Strong leaders shift their mindset from winning to progressing. We're in that game, that finite, that infinite game, right? There are no winners and losers. How are we progressing? Point 4, strong leaders focus on their people and the systems they work in. So what if we shifted our mindset away from goals, but went more to the systems and the processes that we have in place? Do we have the right ones in place? Where within those systems and processes can we improve by 1%? What would happen? What's the compound impact if we went in and improved our systems, our people, ourselves by 1%? What would be the compound impact of that? And then the next point, strong leaders, like Billy Bean said, adapt or die. Now, die might be a harsh word, but adapt or continue to be frustrated. Adapt or continue to go into the red. Adapt or you fill in the blank, right? So how do we do this? How do we start to make progress? How do we start to gain some leverage on some of these points? Challenge your thinking and the thinking of your team, right? Be curious, right? I mentioned Ed Eppley a little bit ago. Be curious. He has a mini podcast. It's about 4.5 minutes long on suspending judgment. And he talks about when you're a leader in a staff meeting and someone says something wacky, suspend judgment. Rather, defer to that curiosity. Ask, why do you think that is? Or how can that be played out if we executed upon that idea? How would that impact our organization? How would it impact the people we're trying to impact? So suspend judgment and default to that curiosity, that open-ended question, because you guys, you've all been there. You've been in a meeting or a brainstorm meeting, someone throws out an idea and the executive director immediately is no and squashes that idea, says, here's why we can't do that. All future creativity in that meeting is thrown out the window. We've just took that energy out of the room. Be curious. There's an executive director I work with of a JDRF chapter, and she was talking about how her team was not very engaged in the staff meetings. So she's trying to figure out, how do I make these staff meetings, get them more engaged? And we talked a little bit about being curious. I said, well, what if you started asking more curious, open-ended questions in these meetings? Next time we had a conversation, I asked how it went. She said it was one of the best meetings that I've had in a long time. Just this little nuance, this little change is going to help you be a stronger leader. Just having a level of curiosity. Disrupt the routine. What do I mean by that? Yeah. Billy Bean with the Oakland A's disrupted the routine. You're going to upset some people, but is it for what's best for the organization? You're going to have to make some tough decisions. Is it what's best for the organization? Disrupting the routine. So I'm also working with a Habitat chapter executive director, and one of the things that she had to make a very tough decision. They had to close their restore. Now, if you're not familiar, the restore is like a thrift store it's a fee for service type program. But we were starting to talk about her situation. She has fallen out of compliance in regards to the national habitat because you have to build a house or rehab a house every year. And there's other things, but that was the big one. And I said, well, does the restore, is that part of your compliance? And she said, no. And there it was. She then made the decision, we need to close the restore momentarily to shift our focus to get us back in compliance. Guys, sometimes we need to take one step back in order to take two forward or three forward. So are you willing to disrupt the routine and do what you need to do to make sure you're putting your organization in a position for that long-term growth? Have a plan. I know it sounds simple, right? I'm curious, how many people here have a strategic plan in place? Just say yes in the chat. I'm just curious. How many have a strategic plan that you're actively working? And I say actively working, not, okay, yes, yes. Not one that's sitting on a shelf. Okay, great. I want to share a story. Executive director, her name's Becky, helped her with their strategic plan. And about 7 or 8 months ago, a donor approached the organization with a $100,000 gift. Wanted to donate $100,000 or a grant, to the organization, but it came with restrictions, right? Here's what I'd like you to do with this money. She says, well, let me get back to you. Took it to the board. And within 5 minutes of talking about this opportunity, someone said, what does our strategic plan tell us? Awesome. Very easy answer at that point. They had a plan and realized this very generous donation this individual wanted to make did not exactly align with their mission and vision or their long-term goals. Didn't exactly align with some of the values that they've outlined. They went back and respectfully declined that donation. Very tough decision, but they had a plan in place to help guide them in making the right decision in that moment. Create a safe environment. Yeah, how do we do that? Show some level of vulnerability. Show that you're vulnerable, you're human too. Do people feel comfortable speaking up in meetings or coming to you and really telling you what's on their mind? Do they tell you what you need to hear, or do they tell you what you want to hear? But creating that safe environment to allow people to confidently step forward and tell you what you think is a way to create that safe environment. Having the right people and on the bus, and have the right people in the right seat on the bus. Deb is an executive director, new executive director. She's been an executive director for about 15 years, started a new position about 2 months ago. And shortly in her role there, she had a staff member completely change their role. This staff member went kicking and screaming, did not want to take on this new role, but they did. A few weeks later, Deb followed up with this person, and they actually like it. They're doing a really good job, and they like that. Deb simply put the right person in the right seat on her bus. She now, at the next staff meeting, is going to have this individual share with all of staff her experience as a way for others to say, you know what? We know Deb is new. We know there's some changes coming. Let's be comfortable with that and trust her. But she is going about this, is making sure that they have the right people on the bus, but then also taking the right steps necessary to get them in the right seat on the bus. And lastly, develop. How are you developing your people? In The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, he says this: leaders aren't responsible for the results. Leaders are responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. Interesting. So how are you developing your people? What's the growth plan for your people? And are they on that pathway to success, whatever that is? All right, who wants some bonus points? We've shared what, five or six? Let's go ahead and share some more bonus points here. Strong leaders never assume. All right, let me read this to you. Right, this is from the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. You can go ahead and put that in Amazon. He talks about 4 agreements. One of them is don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. You know, Becky was sharing with me in a coaching call recently that she assumed that her leadership team was going to do this. And I said, wait a minute, you assumed? Tell me more about that. She explained it, and I read this to her, and she says, oh my goodness, that's what I need to do. Ask questions. Find the courage to ask the questions. Because look, we all have misunderstandings. We've all been there. Is there unnecessary drama going on in your organization? Why is that unnecessary drama happening? I'm wondering if we never made assumptions and made that a rule within your organization, could that change your culture? Could that increase morale? I'd be curious to find out. So LaToya, you said great book. Get back to me. Let me know if that's resonated within your organization. Next point, strong leaders embrace conflict. Yeah, so who is it? Patrick Lencioni. He talks about embracing conflict. Someone earlier in the check-in said confrontation. Yeah, if we can learn to embrace conflict. Now, what I mean by conflict, I'm not talking about a drop-down, drag-out fight and with yelling and screaming. I'm talking about, you know what? I don't agree with that approach. Okay, let's be curious. Let's suspend judgment. Why? Why don't you think that program's going to work? Hear them out. Give them a voice. Give them a safe environment to express their thoughts and opinions. But being a leader and first recognizing that conflict is happening, take time to stop and recognize it. Hey guys, do you realize what's going on? We've got conflict here. This is healthy conflict. This is good. Let's continue to have this conversation. Because without conflict, then we have a lot of people just nodding their heads up and down saying, yeah, we agree, just to get out of the meeting. Can't have that, right? If we embrace conflict and we have the discussions that we absolutely have to have within our boardroom or our meetings, then we're going to come to the right agreement and decisions that everybody is going to align on and be part of. Embrace conflict. Strong leaders are humble. You know, in Jim Collins, Good to Great, he talks about level 5 leadership. They reviewed 1,400 plus organizations. Only 11 were great organizations. And one of the characteristics that every leader in those organizations had was humility. Strong leaders are humble. All right, so I just want to pause here for a moment. These are the 8 that I just shared. Do a screen grab if you want to. Like Kara said at the onset, this is being recorded, so you'll get this later. But strong leaders have a high level of self-awareness. They surround themselves with good people. They shift their mindset from winning to progressing. They focus on their people and the systems they work in. They adapt or die, never assume, embrace conflict, and are humble. So go ahead and do a screen grab of that. All right, so I want to provide some other insights from leaders who took action. And I asked some of my coaching clients and peer group members to answer a couple of questions. And here's a snapshot of what they shared. Peer group is a diverse group of leaders who are forthcoming and sharing honest perspectives. As a result, I'm a better leader for my organization. I appreciate knowing there's a safe place to go to talk through challenges and learn from others. There it is again, a safe place, a safe environment to go. A leadership role in an organization can often be a lonely place. I had a peer group meeting earlier today and someone had mentioned it. We had 5 people on the call and someone said, you know what? It's lonely where we are. And everyone's like, yeah, it is. It can be a lonely place. It's important to have peers with which you can be transparent and receive advice. Truth tellers, right? My peer group provides such a place. Those truth tellers who are telling you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. It's helpful to be part of a group where I don't have to have all the answers. I can admit that I'm struggling with an issue, and I know I'll be met with grace and compassion. Sometimes the act of verbalizing my challenge to others gives me the perspective I need. I love the second line. I don't have to have all the answers. Look, I know it's tough where some of you guys are, because you're busy taking care of your staff, you're taking care of your volunteers, your board, your donors. Everyone's looking to you for the answers. And sometimes you don't have the answers. Sometimes you can go to this group of truth tellers to say, hey, here's the thing I'm dealing with. What do you think I should do? And that person next to you is going to say, I dealt with that 6 months ago. Here's what I did. And they're going to give you that perspective and that insight. I realize that I'm not alone. The peer group is uplifting and encouraging when I need it most. I've learned to embrace not knowing and to listen to gain understanding. So just some things, this is one of the things that really helped me when I was working towards becoming a better leader myself and running my organization and surrounding myself with good people, getting into a peer group. And again, I said it earlier, it's not easy sometimes to hear what you need to hear, but it's been a game changer. And as you can see from some of these comments, it's impacting some folks. So with that, I want to transition into the Nonprofit Hub's Peer Growth Groups program. If any of you were part of the webinar that we ran on January 3rd, we talked about peer groups, but I want to talk a little bit about what Nonprofit Hub is doing with their peer group growth group programs. Right now, there's new to nonprofit, and there's executive peer groups. So there's a QR code, there's the URL there. I'll come back to those, but I want to talk a little bit about the new to nonprofit peer group. So it's a 4-month program in this particular peer group. And it's for anyone who's new to the nonprofit sector, or they're thinking about starting a nonprofit. So you're going to be surrounded by like individuals. Katie Appold, the executive director, is leading those conversations. She's actually in the middle of one of these peer groups right now, but taking more applications for the next group. The group meets weekly via online video. They talk about the fundamentals. They talk about sharing resources, goals, growth. There's also an opportunity to share your work. So you're going to have some assignments one week and come back the next week and share what you've accomplished and get feedback from the group. So you're going to be surrounded by those truth tellers and get some further insight and direction from the group. The next one is the executive peer group. So again, these are weekly also, 1-hour Zoom meetings with your group. You get access to a private cause network channel, so you guys can converse and connect in between meetings. This is critical in all of the peer groups. Confidentiality and trust from your peers. That is at the core. If we don't have the confidentiality and the trust, these peer groups don't work. You have moderation and guidance from Katie and myself. You are going to gain new perspectives. You're going to gain new insights. So with all of the peer groups, you also get membership into the cause network. So, that includes continuing education credit for CFRE, all past Cause Camp conference recordings. So you get all of these other benefits for being in a peer group. Now, who's a good candidate? Right now, we're not just taking any warm body who has a checkbook. We're taking a very methodical approach to this. We want to make sure we have the right people in these peer groups. Here's who we're looking for: growth-minded professionals. If you've ever heard Brene Brown talk about vulnerability, that's the second point here: vulnerability, and that kind of goes with growth-minded. Once we're vulnerable, that's the birthplace of creativity and change, is what Brene Brown would say. So we're looking for those people who are comfortable being vulnerable. We're looking for good people. Now, we joke about this and say, you know what, we're not looking for jerks, but you know what, we're not. We're looking for good people who truly want to grow themselves, grow their organizations, but also want to help others grow who are in the same shoes as they are. We talked about curiosity. We want people who are curious, who are going to come and say, how do you do that? How should I do this? Or tell me more about that. That curiosity is going to lead to deeper, more meaningful conversations. We're also looking for those people who are committed. I know it's asking a lot to come, show up, filled up every week, but having those committed players is going to be essential to the success of the group. So the process, apply. Again, there's the QR code, there's the URL. We're not paying anything right now. We're just applying to gauge your interest. After you submit your application, you're going to have a one-on-one call with either myself, if it's for the executive peer group, or with Katie for the new to nonprofit group. After that conversation with Katie, she's going to either invite you to the group or point you in the direction where you should get the necessary resources for what's best for you. For my group with the executive peer group, we're going to have that one-on-one call, and we're going to determine, is this the right fit for you? And are you right for the group? And if we mutually decide that, yes, this is good, then I'm going to invite you to an experience event. And that experience event is just that. You're going to be there with 5 to 10 other potential peer group members, and we're actually going to go through what is it like to be part of a peer group discussion every week. After that, we're going to have another one-on-one conversation with me, and we're going to talk more about that experience and what's best for you. I'm going to ask you, why do you think you would be good for this group? What can you bring to the peer group? And again, if we mutually decide that it's a benefit for both, we're going to invite you into that group. So again, we're not just taking any warm bodies. We want those people who are growth-minded or vulnerable, bring that level of curiosity. They want to be there to grow themselves, but they also are there to grow others as well. So there's the QR code again. There's the URL. I encourage you. It doesn't hurt to apply. At least have a conversation with either Katie or myself, because if it isn't the right situation, we're going to point you in the right direction to get you what you need. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Kara. See if we have any questions. So I'll take some questions now. Let me go back here just so you guys can see that QR code. So I'm going to turn the fire hose off. And Kara.
Hi, thank you, Joel. That was great. That was really informative. And I think you got a lot of great feedback in the chat. A lot of people, a lot of that resonated with everybody and talk about their frustrations. And so thank you for that. That was really great. Let us check. Let me see.
So, you know what, I see one from Edith. That's a great question, Edith. So the new to the nonprofit peer group is $4.99 for 4 months. And the executive peer group is $300 a month. The difference is that the new to nonprofit is 4 months, and the executive peer group is infinite. We ask that you be in the group for about 3 months, get some traction, and then we can make a decision if you want to continue or not. But once you're in, it's indefinite at that point. So.
Awesome. So we also have another question from Lawrence. He asks, what are the distinctions between a nonprofit leadership versus leadership for for-profit organizations?
In for-profit, you know what? Thanks, Lawrence, because I was thinking about that this morning. I don't think there really is a distinction. When I think about some of the principles that we talked about here today, don't assume. They're humble. I'm like, okay, humility, that applies to for-profit and nonprofit, right? Not being afraid to disrupt. I think that goes for nonprofits as well as for-profit. Jim Collins, in his book Good to Great, he also spun off from that book, which was focused all on for-profit, and came up with a social sector Good to Great, a version of that for the nonprofit world. A lot of the same principles. So I don't think there's really a huge distinction. There might be some nuances, but by and large, a lot of those principles apply to both sides. So thanks for bringing that up. Oh, I'm sorry. So Katie just said the new to nonprofit group is actually part of a 2-day course for $2.99. Okay. Great. Thanks, Katie. Hey, the point there, apply, have the conversation, and you'll learn more about what's best for you. Okay, great.
Yes, and I guess one other thing to even go off of the nonprofit or for-profit is that, in nonprofit, there are their own nuances within in the industry. Even specifically dealing with like donors and fundraising that you might not have those same struggles.
It's a really good point. I think it's harder being a nonprofit leader because of that. You're juggling so many things, and you've got to manage that board. You've got how many bosses? A lot of different bosses. So your leadership abilities in that regard, you've got to wear many hats. You've got to show up filled up, and it's a little bit difficult. I think it's more complex than the for-profit side.
Exactly. And here's another question for you, Joel. So what would you say to someone who wants to be a leader but is uncomfortable with confrontation?
I was that guy, and I still am that guy, but I've gotten better. You know what? We are blessed in the professional world and just in life that we get as many bats at the plate as we want, and we get as many swings and strikes as we want. So take them. They're unlimited. And it goes back to that point earlier about taking imperfect action. If you're uncomfortable with confrontation, where can you find those opportunities to put yourself in that? I know it's uncomfortable, it's awkward at times, and like I said earlier, confrontation isn't a drop-down yell, screaming match. It's a, you know what? I love you. I just don't love your idea. How do you cross that bridge, right? And I would encourage you, the next time that you don't agree with something, it's not I'm frustrated, I'm upset, and I don't like you because of that. It's, hold on a second. Let me be curious for a moment. Let me suspend judgment and ask an open-ended, curious question. Maybe that's how you can do a better job of easing into getting more comfortable with handling confrontation. That's how I do it. I ask a lot of questions.
That's a great answer. Our one last chance. Is there any other questions before we're going to invite our sponsor, Pond, and Mitch? He's going to talk for a brief second. Is there any other questions? All right. I don't see any other ones in the chat. We did get some nice comments about how it was an excellent presentation. So thank you for that. And thank you, Joel. We really appreciate your time and for delivering this information to us.
Thank you, Kara. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, because you guys are doing the meaningful work, and you give me an opportunity to play my part in working with those who are doing meaningful work and help you in a meaningful way do your work. So just thank you all for doing what you're doing.
Hi, Mitch. If you want to take over, and Mitch is here. He is our partner and he's our sponsor for today's webinar with Pond. So he's going to just talk a little bit about Pond and what they do.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. It's great to be here, everybody. Sorry for a little technical difficulties at the beginning. But yeah, we're really excited to partner with Nonprofit Hub. So this we just released today. You can see some of the details on the screen. But Pond is a reward platform and marketplace for nonprofits to find all the tools and services and programs they need to thrive. So you can think about it kind of like if you've ever used Angie's List or Thumbtack to find a handyman or a cleaning person, except for it's to find tools and consultants and services you need for your organization. The coolest part about it is you get rewards for every time you engage with the platform. So you literally get paid to take demos and talk to potential candidates for any of those needs that you have. And our special partnership with Nonprofit Hub is that everyone here and anyone who's a member of Nonprofit Hub can use the code NonprofitHub100, and you'll automatically get $100 in your Pond account for things on the platform. We're really trying to make everything more accessible that people can use through Pond. One of those things are access to Cause Camp. So you can even take the $100 in your account and put that towards 100% of the cost of a virtual pass to Cause Camp. and lots of other benefits on the platform. So you can use those credits on things like conferences, training platforms, special deals, and there's new things getting added every week. So we're just really excited to help Nonprofit Hub reward all of you for taking the time to do great things like invest in yourself through education, webinars like this, all the webinars Pond hosts. And if you want more information, obviously you can go to joinpond.com and sign up there and see more on our perks page. Also, Katie and I recorded a little overview video that we can share with the group as well today to explain some of the partnership and why we're so excited to be working together. And I can try to drop this one pager into the chat too, just so you have all the info. But thanks so much for having me, and thank you for the great leadership presentation. It's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mitch. And we will be including a little bit more information about Pond's offer and the follow-up email along with the recording. For also those who are still here, Joel did drop his email in the chat as well. And so you can reach out to him with any additional questions that you may have not been able to get to today. Thank you all so much for coming. It's been great to have you all. And we hope to see you all next Webinar Wednesday.